Hey guys, today I want to show off or share my experience of upgrading or replacing the barrel bushing for CZ TS2 Racing Green. So as you can see, the new barrel bushing is already installed and this is the old one. So first thing first, do you need a aftermarket barrel bushing, for example, from Cajun Gunworks on a CZ TS2 or TSO, whatever? My personal answer is no. I think the original factory barrel bushing is sufficient, and the gun is already way more accurate than I am, and I'm not a competitive shooter, so it is completely unnecessary for me. Then the only reason I still did it is, because not a lot of people has done it and or shared on internet how they did it. And I also want to do some, completely unnecessary upgrade to my TS2 because I just want to get the experience and have fun with it and see how far I can go, right? Yeah, so upfront is completely unnecessary. It's for fun, for experience, and to give people some reference if they plan to do that or they just are curious about it, right? So let's see, where do we start? If you want to do it, you can already search online. There is YouTube videos about how to do that for Shadow 2. First thing is to remove the front sight, right? And then second step is to remove the factory barrel bushing, which is the hardest part. And then the third part is to put the aftermarket or the new barrel bushing back in. If you search online, people talk about using 10 millimeter or 11 millimeter socket and put it inside of the barrel. No, not the barrel, the slide, to help drive the factory one out, because the theory is the socket goes in, the deep socket is like this long, right? And then it goes in and is able to catch on the edge, and then you hammer on it and then it can push it out. It might work, but that's not the way I used, because I realized that let's see, we can get the light right. You can see here the bushing is not exactly how do you say it? It's not exactly narrower, right, than the slide per se, because if you can see, there's the edge of the bushing, it meets the edge of the barrel inside, and it creates a gap. So which means no, sorry, I keep saying barrel. Which means the slide after this line, it all of a sudden goes a little bit wider. That is to give enough room for the barrel bushing to come in, and it's actually, it accommodates the bushing. Is the bushing still narrower than the barrel, than the slide? Yes, it is. It's probably just by a little bit. But if you're not using, the exact right tool, what it could mean is the socket or whatever, as you hammer on it and as it try to push the bushing out, it could be squeezing into the bushing and actually try to expand the bushing, and it makes it even harder for you to drive it out. So after realizing that how the slide internal looks like, and that there is not much of a surface for the bushing, exposed and for you to work on, I kind of gave up that idea, right? And also, I don't know about Shadow 2, but for TS2, if you use an 11 millimeter socket, it cannot even go into the slide. I didn't try 10 mil, but you know, so instead, the way I did it is, if you, yeah, imagine this is uh, the factory bushing in it, right? And you can see that there is some kind of surface. Let me actually put it on the vise so that we can. It's easier for us to talk about it. Let me move the move this guy over. Right. Okay. All right. So you can see that the barrel comes out a little bit right here, right, and it's exposed through here. And some people might want to just use something and then lean it, put it against this part, right, and then start to drive it out. You could try, but I'm telling you, for me, it didn't work, because what it ended up with is this, right? Because the bushing is like thicker on the muscle side and thinner on the tail, and the material, the metal, I do not think is hardened steel. It's some kind of other softer metal. So if you keep knocking and hammering on there, it will start to break, start to rip, and then you will lose that kind of surface, and then it's not enough to drive it out. And it's also fairly easy to damage the slide on this part, like this part of the slide. It's very easy to get caught on that edge and damage the slide. So that's my experience, first try on this section. No, not good. And I tried using the heat gun to kind of heat the slide, and to try to put kind of some colder like frozen objects through here to kind of reduce the temperature of the bushing, so that we can create a contrast, right? The slide is expanded and the barrel is shrunk, so that it creates some kind of a small room and it makes it easier to drive things out. Well, I'm telling you, you don't have to try that, because this overall process takes a little bit of time. If you do everything right, it might still take like 5-10 minutes, and by that time the heat exchange already happens, and it will not make much of a difference. So you don't need to try that. That's my personal thing. So instead, what should we do? You can already see it's actually on the other end, and you use a flat screwdriver and try to lean here, and then you start to hammer on it. And then since the metal is very soft, not very soft, but relatively soft, then you start to break the material and start to make some kind of surface here, right? Because as you knock down, some material will be scraped off, and then it will create some kind of a surface here, and then it creates a surface for you to lean your flathead screwdriver here, and then you keep hammering it. It will create a downward force, and that's actually what got my barrel bushing to come out relatively easily, right? So in order to do that, I would recommend a vise, because otherwise it's fairly difficult. And for vise, I always recommend you to have protection. So this kind of I have a pair of plastic vise protectors. They have magnets on them, so that you can just put on, right? And then I would strongly recommend, you already see some scrape mark here. I strongly recommend you put a piece of wood down here to act as a supporting surface for the slide, and it will not scratch your slide either. And then you can also wrap some kind of towel or cloth around here if you want, and then essentially you want it to be placed about 45 degrees with a solid support at the end here, so that you have some small room for the bushing to come out. So essentially you want it to be like this, and then clamp very tight, and then I think about I don't know, 60 45 degrees or whatever. And then let me move my camera here so that you can see what I'm talking about. Essentially it should look like this, right? And imagine it has a piece of wood down here to give it a good support. Everything is placed well, clamped tight, so that when you start to hammer, bear in mind that the force will be like here, and there will be some kind of force horizontally, and you want to make sure like your slide does not move as you do that. So now come down here, where do you want to hammer it on, right? Where your flat screwdriver should be pushing against, because you definitely do not want to hammer on your slide, although your slide is very, very strong. It's like a very hardened steel, but anyhow, as you can see, as I mentioned before, there is a small gap, right, where the bushing meets the slide. So there are two edges, and the in between is just a kind of a gap. You want your flat screwdriver to be leaning over there, right, and then pointing towards the bushing. So what it looks like is, get some light here, is you have a long, try to use a long screwdriver. This one is a little bit short. You want it to be leaning against there, right? And then on the 12 o'clock kind of a position, right? And then you want to hold it like this, and then you want to hammer it down. Do 3 or 4 times and stop, and then observe whether you are damaging anything and whether things are moving, including your slide, your vice protector, and all those kind of things. Make sure they're still in position. Well, for me, this is like, I've done everything, so this is just a kind of a demo. Yeah, you want to do some strong punches. You can use a regular hammer. Don't use a small gunsmith hammer, because that's not strong enough. Yeah, whack 3 or 4 times and then check it. Whack 3 or 4 times, check it, and then if you don't see it moving and you don't see any damage on the side, which means if you start to see the material start to come off like this, it means you're doing the right thing, and you are just not doing it hard enough, right? Then just whack harder, strong, make some stronger punches, and then eventually it just should start to look like this right here, and then you keep punching, and then it should start to come out, and then you should start to see the bushing coming out a little bit, right? And then once it starts to move, it's only gonna get easier. It's gonna get easier and easier, way easier, right? And then eventually you will be able to knock it off. And then the hardest part is done. And that's part 1, right? Then part 2 would be putting your replacement barrel bushing back in. You want to clean the slide or whatever, and then imagine this is the replacement one. I put it in the freezer to make it colder, and I But before installing it, I use a heat gun to heat up the slide a little bit, and then you take it out of the freezer and quickly put a lot of gun grease on it, and then quickly do it. Put it back in. Alignment is very important, because if this groove misaligns with your slide, once it gets in, it's almost impossible to rotate. Almost impossible. So you want to do it initially. You want to just put it to get in just slightly, and then you want to make sure like it's aligned. How do you do it is imagine this is the line, and then it comes out, and then imagine this is the line and it comes out, and make sure this is centered, right? Your groove on the bushing is kind of centered towards here, and then you can push a little bit by hand and then make sure it's in place, right? It's not super loose, and then you can start whacking it down. You can use a soft kind of thing, maybe a gun, what do you call it, vice block, that kind of a soft thing, and then put it on top, and then use the hammer to start to, knock it down. It requires some heavy punches. It's not super loose. Knock it all the way down, and then there should be no gap on the outside. And also, once it's fully in there, you can use your pin puncher to go through the hole and make sure the groove is aligned with the slide. And once it's in, the step 2 is finished. So for me, some learnings, right? As you can see, there are some kind of serious scratch marks on the slide on both sides, which kind of breaks my heart. And it actually has nothing to do with the barrel bushing removal or whatever, the whole process, or the punching, or the screwdriver like poking or whatever. It's actually because, here. It's because my vise, as I do hammering, because I wrap it with cloth, I couldn't see as I hammer really hard, the protector actually started to slide and they actually moved away. And then because I wrapped it with the cloth, I didn't see it happen. And then it ended up with actually the bare metal of the wires start to, I actually clamped using the bare metal with the slide. So that was my mistake, and it's a big learning. And that's what created the scratch mark on it. It actually not, because this particular job is dangerous, or this particular job will damage your slide or whatever. No, if you do it right, exactly like this, it should not leave any mark on your slide at all, because really, even on the inside, I do so much punching, all the impact happened on the original barrel bushing itself. It didn't put any damage on the slide. So if you do it properly, don't worry about damaging your slide. But yeah, you need to do it properly. So that kind of breaks my heart, and these scratch marks, they look ugly, and it created some extra serration for me. Anyway, that's my lesson. If you try to do the same thing, hopefully you can avoid it. Yeah, I could have done better, but life is always a lesson. Next task is step 3, is to put the barrel back in. I anticipate that to need a little bit of whacking as well. So let me bring the barrel and the other stuff. Okay, we're back, and the first thing is, step 3. First thing of step 3 is to put the front sight back. Let's get some gun oil here. There's only one way to go back. It's a little bit tight, which is fine. Let's use our small hammer. Want to use the plastic side because I don't want to damage anything. Some easy punch should do. Because the red thing, whatever you call it, is pretty soft and very easy to damage. So need a little bit more whacking. We have a plastic thing here. It's going out of the picture a little bit, but it's fine. You know what I'm doing. Just need to whack it a little bit more. Nope, not quite there yet. Yep, let's see, it's fully, the hole is round and there's nothing blocking it, and I think at this point it's fully back in. I can just knock on it one more time to make sure this is not flat surface. All right, check the hole. It's round and good. Now put the pin back. Is it tapered? Yep, it's tapered. I remember I probably knock it out this way. So put it back in the same way. As it comes closer to the slide, gotta be extra careful because you don't want anything to scratch the slide. Will this help? This helps stabilize. Going. Always want to stop on the way, because if you did something wrong, you don't want to keep doing it. So just stop, check, and resume. Okay, just a little bit more. What's funny is I don't have a roll pin or pin thing that is exactly the same diameter, which is weird. So this won't go all the way in. It's not optimal. Yeah, so you see this one is a little bit thinner than the roll pin, than the spring pin, so which is not optimal, which is not ideal. Because if you whack too hard, it's gonna deform. What should we do then? It's not a big problem because it's, you know, the front side is not going anywhere. It's just, but I'm a, you know, perfectionist. Just want to make sure, just want to, you know, make everything perfect. Yeah, we're getting there. All right. Almost perfect. Come on. What the heck? I don't know. Sometimes I've seen people saying, you know, you need to replace the the spring pin after this. I don't know why. I don't think you need to. Come on. Okay, I think that's good enough. It's not perfectly centered, but it's fine as long as on the right side is not protruding. It's okay. So now the front side is done. Let's check the rod. The rod is fine. Okay, now let's see whether the 10x bushing is so tight that the barrel cannot go all the way in. Ooh, lucky. We didn't need to whack it, because if you compare it with the Shadow 2 video, the barrel replacement video, they needed to, because it gets stuck here, and they needed to whack on the tail to kind of push it in. For us, we don't need to do it, which means it's a lot easier for me to, you know, remove the slide and do the complete mintness. Wow. Okay. Lucky. Finally, one good thing happened today. Okay, put stuff back in. Ta-da. By the way, you see the TS2 spring, one side is smaller than the other side. So the smaller side should go to the go to this side, I believe. Ta-da. Perfect. Oh crap. Got too excited. Forgot the buffer. Okay, did I miss anything? I do not think so. Now, the grip, my sexy green grip. You can check out my other video about this gun. I lubricated it. I even put some gun grease on it before. So do I need to re-lubricate? I do not think so. Back in. All right. Test. Smooth. Yep. Oh man. Can't get enough of it. Okay, now snap cap, okay? Dummy rounds, not real rounds. Anyway, now let's see the benefit. See, the barrel bushing is, I actually did not show it, but I tested it, or I experienced it myself. The 10x barrel bushing is indeed much tighter and not forgiving compared to the factory one. So if you slide the barrel through the bushing, the factory one has some play, and the Cajun Gunworks one is really tight. Even if you have slightly a little bit angled, it won't even slide. So it has to be perfectly what do you call it, aligned for it to go smoothly. So that is a proof that it's working. Wait, oh, sorry, it is my dummy rounds that is not happy with what I'm doing here. Forget about these guys. I just want to rack the slide a couple more times to, oh man, tight and smooth. So now if I keep the slide back, yeah, oh, well, obviously there should be no play at all, but man, there you have it. Again, dummy round in it, right? There you have it. The 10x Cajun Gunworks barrel bushing replacement for CZ TS2. Not a whole lot of people has done it or shared on the internet. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you like it. See you next time.